Welcome to Spill the Tea about weddings. Hi, I'm Teresa.
Hi, I'm Sheila.
Hi there, welcome to Spill the Tea about weddings with Sheila and Teresa. Hi, I'm Teresa, owner of the English Country Barn, a beautiful wedding venue in North Carolina.
Hi, I'm also Teresa, and I am the lead videographer for Big Capture Photography and Videography.
Hi Teresa, how are you today?
Doing good. How about yourself?
Good. Yeah, I'm doing great, although obviously it's heading to spring finally, which is great, but we've all had the crud.
Yes.
And as you might notice, that one of our people has still got the crud, and Sheila's only with us in spirit today. She's away sick. One of the downsides about being in the wedding industry is that we get to hug lots of people, and I think that it passes
Somewhere,
around. We all seem
it.
to
Yeah.
catch something. So,
Yes.
so we do have a subject we're going to talk about today. But
Yes.
before we do that, I just thought it would be a good opportunity to actually touch upon, as professionals, what we do when we get the crud and how we give our couples the confidence to know that we have a plan.
Oh, definitely, definitely.
I mean, Ian and I have a plan because fortunately we try only for one of us to get sick at a time, so the other one can be a backup plan. And so far so good. It's actually worked out quite well.
Yeah.
But because for us, most of our contact during the weekend of the actual wedding is hands off because we do most of our hard work during the week. We're not passing any nastiness on to
anyone,
else.
definitely.
But what about you?
So for us, basically the same. We try to make sure that one of us is good versus the other. So
No kissing.
No kissing. Not even sleeping in the same bedroom because you know, like you don't want to just kind of keep passing it around, and both of you can be out. Period. That's it. You know, you both can be out.
There are bonuses to having a husband-wife team, though, aren't there? Because does mean that at least there is a team, so we
exactly.
So can you imagine if it was just one person?
I mean,
you've got to have a real backup plan.
Oh, definitely, you would have to have a backup plan. But for us, I mean, we've had it. Couples will never know, obviously, because you're a professional and it's their day, it's not your day, it doesn't matter. But I actually, and I don't think you know this, I actually fell once at the English Country Barn.
Did you?
With my expensive camera on me.
Did you save the camera first?
Yes,
and,
I did. So I was like on the stairs, you know, as you're going up. So I'm on the stairs and I tripped. And so the first thing, my thought, you know, it's my camera. So I like grabbed the camera with one hand and held it up. And then I went down. And when I went down, like my other hand just kind of like bent back.
Oh.
And I was like, at that moment, I was like, I ran into the bathroom because you know, like when initially the impact, it hurts, and you just, even though you don't want to have
you want to cry.
your tears are coming out, and you're like, no. Took me like 5 minutes, you know, to get myself composed and stuff. And I was like, okay, wrap my hand just to make sure. And then I came outside and I told George, I was like, I'm like, listen, you're going to have to help me pick up stuff right now because I'm not going to be able to pick it all up. I'm like, I kind of fell. I'm like, but we are good.
Kind of fell.
Exactly. I'm like, but we are good, you know? And he was like, oh my God. And I'm like, we're good. Everything's good. Usually I'm the one that drives, you know, like for weddings, like after the wedding, because usually he's trying to put a little social media video together and stuff. So I'm the one that drives. It's a 1 hour drive. That day I could not drive. My hand was like just getting more swollen. So by the time we got home, you know, and then he takes off whatever I had on, and he was like, oh my God. And I was like, I don't think it's broken. And he was like, how did you? And I was like, we're professionals. That the couple had no idea, never knew nothing when, you know, I mean, besides, you know, George helping me pick up stuff so that I didn't have to pick up all the weight with that one hand. You know, nobody knew nothing. I mean, I was like, you know, for the next like week, I was just kind of like, you know, with my hand wrapped up and stuff.
Oh my goodness.
But I think, you know, it's always so important that couples understand that, you know, unless, I guess, you know, you're completely like, you know, dead on the deathbed, most professionals will make the day about yourself and it's not about us. And we have contingency plans. You know, like we always say, we can flip-flop. Fortunately, we are a couple team and we can flip-flop. So if someone can do the video, then George jumps in. If he can, then I jump in. And so, you know, it allows us that flexibility that the couple doesn't have to interact with someone else outside from us.
It's tough though, isn't it? Because there's always that fine line of whether if you're contagious, you don't want to obviously interact with anybody.
Of course.
And I remember that Ian had COVID a couple of years ago. Now, you know, I don't do crowds. And so the night he was very, very poorly with COVID, I was forced to go up and interact with everybody and make sure it was all okay, which was actually awful because it's not my strength. It's not something I'm comfortable doing. But as a team, that's what we do.
Yes.
And he said, somebody's got to go up there, I'll get up. And I said, you can't get up because you're contagious.
Exactly.
And to me, as somebody who's immunocompromised, I can't have COVID vaccines because I just, you know, it's just one of those things I can't do. So I wouldn't be very grateful if somebody was sick showing up.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So it's obviously, you know, one of those things that couples need to think about. Is there a contingency if somebody not only falls and breaks their wrist, but also is a contingency if somebody's contagious and what we're going to do and how we're going to manage. I mean, you know, we've all been sick recently, and I lost my voice entirely. So Ian has been nowhere near me. He's loved it because it's been completely silent at the house. I have a long list of things I want to complain to him about once my voice is all recovered. But it also, you know, meeting couples and say, I'm sorry, but I'm not contagious at the moment. I just am still recovering. But I didn't want to meet people and shake their hand and breathe near them because you don't know. And I think it's one of those things that couples need to consider when they book a vendor. And ask those questions. Do they have a contingency?
Exactly.
So
and
that
also,
they know.
I do feel, you know, like, I mean, unfortunately or fortunately, you know, we did go through the whole COVID, you know, contingency stuff and mask and sanitizing and things like that. And so, you know, you learn how to operate and without having to, you know, interact with the couple like that. But also, I do feel like you just kind of have to be honest, right? Like you kind of have to say, like, well, listen, like
we all need to have a red cross or something when we're sick.
Contagious. No, but I mean something where you know, like you can just tell the couple, like, listen, like I've been a little sick, so I'm gonna wear a mask to make sure I protect your family and stuff, and I might not hug you, and that doesn't mean that I'm not happy, excited for your day. I'm just trying to protect you and your family too. And so most of the time people will understand. I think when people don't understand is when you just don't say anything. And then now, you know, you go from having this interaction where every time you meet a couple, you're hugging and you're so excited and you're like, you know, in close contact with them. And then all of a sudden, you don't, because then they'll be like, well, what's wrong? Like, is there something
It's all
wrong?
back to communication again, isn't it, really? But I think that communication needs to start with the couple being comfortable with
the person.
All of the contingencies at the beginning, so those conversations have happened. I mean, we all know Sheila's not here today, so if it was a wedding day, she's too sick to be here. So, you know, they need to be comfortable that her contingency is clearly in place and that their day is not going to be ruined by somebody being sick.
Exactly.
So, you know, it's something that I would say couples need to consider when they're booking somebody, you know, because most of us in the industry are small businesses, which then means that we might have a small team. So, you know, it's always worth thinking about, isn't it? I mean, particularly because since we've all been sick recently.
Definitely.
You know,
and I think, you know, like, that's where it comes into part, like sometimes, you know, we'll get hired just for video or just for pictures, and we know that it's only one of us going, right?
Yeah.
But it's still from the first interaction, we both are there. Because if for some reason the main person who, you know, George is main photographer, I'm main videographer, but if for some reason, like I couldn't, they already know George and they've already interacted with George. And we tell them when we do our meetings with the couple, we'll tell them, okay, well, this is the lead photographer, this is the lead videographer. You're probably going to deal with this person if you're only doing photos. You're going to deal with this person if you're doing video. However, if for any reason, then the other person jumps in. And so it makes it easier, you know, and so couples have that kind of like comfort that, okay, we're going to have some type of contingency and they already know that person versus just having some random stranger show up and say, well, sorry, he couldn't be here, but here I am.
We had exactly that happen for my daughter's wedding. She'd booked a photographer who, for reasons that still remain unknown, didn't come and just sent this random stranger who showed up with a camera and said, hi, I'm here to photograph your wedding. Well, there was no interaction, so therefore there was no relationship between her and my daughter before the wedding.
Yeah.
So then my daughter didn't feel the same ease that she had felt
with the other.
originally. So it is important that those
is.
conversations happen, isn't it?
Definitely.
And that you are comfortable with everybody. I mean, can you imagine if everybody loved Ian and hated me, and then I showed up?
Yes.
What the heck is she
What
doing
is going
here?
on?
So,
Definitely.
so it's important.
And I mean, I guess, like there are some like jobs or some vendors where you could say, well, I'm not going to interact with them that much, like, and I don't know, like let's say the florist, they're just coming and dropping off flowers. They're not your planner. They're not there for the rest of your day. If the florist couldn't make it, can she then set her team and like, all the flowers, will they still be okay? Will they still be what your vision was? And most of the time, couple won't even see them. Like maybe the bride when they drop off the bouquet, but the groom really doesn't see them. So maybe in that case, you are not as picky about the relationship, but I think there are some relationships like your planner, your photographer, videographer, because they're there all day long with you, that it is important that for the vendor themselves to have that other person be a part, or somehow, whoever is your contingency plan, to at least be known that, hey, if something happens, don't worry, this is the person that I'm going to send. This is them. If you want to meet them, you can meet them. Obviously, it's only in place of an emergency, but, like that way the couple has that interaction with that person and feels a little bit more comfortable. So I think there are certain vendors that definitely need to, from the beginning, involve that person, because like you said, if a photographer just doesn't show up and a random stranger who you have no connection at all, you don't know, and then how about this person, their vibe is completely different from the one that you vibe with, then that can make or break your day, because now you have this person with you 8-12 hours of the whole day, and you don't feel comfortable with them.
Exactly.
So, there are vendors that I think like they should be as a part of it. Like I think, like planners do that a lot. Like they always have their second, and the second is always kind of also interacting with the couple from the beginning, so the couple creates that relationship just in case. Bartenders do that too. They introduce you to the other person who could be there, or might even be there just as a second, just to help out, but the couple builds that relationship. So I think it is important that a couple at least, ask, okay, well, what's your plan? And if that's the situation, which we're hoping, no, that, right, we're saying again, this is like just only in emergency situations. But if it didn't, okay, well, who would it be? And could I at least look at their portfolio? In our case, right, because, we have portfolios. Could I at least look at that, like, so I can see if it's my style, if I'm comfortable, before I go down that route? So I think there are vendors, that definitely the couple needs to be.
And it's definitely part of the value of why some people have a higher budget to spend or to charge, because professionals that have already thought about all those contingencies, rather than Joe up the road who's just bought a camera, who may get the flu and has got no contingency, it's just not going to come. So, there are lots of nuances, aren't there, really, as to why a professional charges what they charge. And it's not just about the budget, it's about the thought of contingencies and insurances and all of those good things. So so it is something that I think couples should explore when they're just, don't blindly just book somebody because they're the cheapest, but have those conversations. Do they have a contingency? Do they have a backup? Do they have insurance?
Exactly.
Because, if you can't come and suddenly their wedding's ruined, that's a potential
that's a big
problem,
one.
isn't
Yeah,
it?
exactly, definitely.
So, definitely. Anyway, let's get on to something much more fun. So, serious, it's still serious stuff and still educational, but let's talk about timelines and why they are so important.
Definitely.
We're always trying to help our couples have the best day ever and have a wedding that flows seamlessly so that they don't have any reason on Sunday not to tell me it's the best day ever.
Yeah, definitely.
So, timelines.
They are like one of the things that we just kind of, I think our couples know already from us, that we just drill it and drill it and drill it. But they realized on their wedding day why it was so important that we went over all of that. So one thing that I do want to kind of point out first before even jumping into the whole timeline thing is that there are different timelines for different vendors. So you will have the main primary timeline, that is the timeline that dictates your day, that comes from your wedding planner, right? That's the timeline that tells people, like, okay, the ceremony is at 4, hair and makeup starts at such and such time, reception starts at this time. But that's, one timeline. from there, specifically, again, I can speak for videography and photography. There is also a timeline for the photographer and videographer. And that's the timeline that actually goes into a lot more detail, because if you say, okay, well, hair and makeup is going to be from 8 to 12. That's what the planner's timeline says, and the girls are just sitting there doing hair and makeup. But that doesn't mean your photographer is for 4 hours just sitting there waiting on you to finish hair and makeup. Your photographer, videographer are going to actually be doing other things. And you want to kind of know what those things are, because also it gets dictated a lot by the couple. If the couple says, like, I'm really, really, like, I want to make sure I get shots of the venue, like those, like, drone shots of the venue before all the cars are there, before everybody starts arriving and you have people walking through the venue. You want to get those details, if you have, like anything going on in the morning before you actually start to do the actual, like, first looks and things like that. All of that has to be added to a timeline, because when do you get those details? When do you start looking at that? When do you start capturing that? So the timeline for your videographer, photographer is going to look a lot more different, because it might look like, okay, hair and makeup starts at 8, videography, photography starts at 8.
Well, I mean, I'm not a photographer, but one of the things I talk to our couples about quite, or our brides especially, is those early morning pajama shots with the mimosas. And if they're not in a timeline somewhere, they might have their mimosas and nobody's captured those special moments.
What's going on.
Some of my favorite photographs are those the sort of almost unplanned but planned timeline shots. We had one recently where the bride was popping the champagne out on the cottage deck, and it's fun, it's fabulous, and it's part of the day, and it's a celebration, and she's relaxed, and there's no form. It's just fun. Or the guys heading off into the house to go and get ready. And if they're not on a timeline somewhere, nobody's capturing them, are they? Because, the guys are not going to think, one of us will take a picture or a video of them. So.
Yeah, no, definitely. And also, like, that understanding, right? Because we've had it, we can't believe how many times we've heard sometimes where people will, like, if the communication hasn't been smooth or something, like, where we will hear, like, okay, well, photography is doing the bride and bridesmaids portraits at this hour, at 1 o'clock. Oh, but also the guys also need their portraits done, and it's also at 1 o'clock, and you hire one photographer. How is that going to get covered? But if the communication isn't there, that there is a second shooter, then that timeline needs to be addressed. It needs to be changed. You have to make sure that you have some time for the girls and then some time for the guys. But if you don't put it on paper, you might show up to the guys and you say, okay, well, we're starting with you at 12, and the guys haven't even showered. Or you may show up with the girls and you say, okay, well, now I'm going to get your portraits, and none of them have hair and makeup done. And the worst is they don't want any pictures without at least some hair and makeup done.
Right.
And so then now you are just basically there without anything going on,
being paid to twiddle your thumbs.
Exactly. So for us, we always and we incorporate in like in our plans that we do have a timeline, and we build that timeline. Like, we don't need the couple to build it for us. We can build it. What we need is a communication from the couple to what's important, what they want captured, and then we'll create a timeline so that there is space for everything. And that
how much of that has to be led by you? Because I'm sure that they don't even think about the mimosa shots, or the guys playing football, or the guys I mean, some of my favorite video is when you did all the guys walking into the cottage in their shorts and t-shirt, and then they all walk back out again in their suits, and I love that. But if you haven't got that on your timeline to get the beginning. And I bet they didn't even think about it until you suggest it to them.
No, they don't.
So I'm sure that timeline must be absolutely guided by you.
It is.
Of the things that they, especially the morning, where they probably don't even consider any of it being taken.
Yeah, I think majority, I would say probably 80% of the time, couples don't even realize that there should be a timeline for your photographer, videographer. They just believe that the timeline that the wedding planner is doing is the timeline.
And they just think you're just going to show up and snap as anything that happens.
Exactly. So we have taken, and I just mean me and George, we've taken it on to us that from the moment we meet the couple, just for the consultation, we do talk about that timeline, and we talk about the importance of it. Specifically because there are some things that you just can't do anything about. And one of those is like the big sunset pictures. If your ceremony is going on during the sunset, there is no way for us to recreate. I wish we could, right? I wish I could just say like, okay, can we rewind that sunset so we can redo it? But no, once it's gone, it's gone. And so if you have something like your ceremony going on during that time, then you're not going to get those
or even
pictures.
dinner. If you decided that you're going to have dinner at that time.
Oh yeah, exactly.
There's been no conversation about
it.
And those sunset pictures are spectacular.
Gorgeous.
I mean,
Exactly.
I have to say, I've been to the barn a couple of times. If I'm feeding the horses, if the horses are over there in the evening, and I look at the sunset and I think, oh my God, this is so outstanding. And nobody is outside. And I'm not a photographer. And I think, oh, they're missing this amazing. Because they've got that wrong and they're having dinner or they're doing their speeches and they've missed it.
Completely.
And it's gone.
Exactly.
And
it's
I
gone.
mean, and oftentimes I notice that, again, I'm not a photographer, but I've sort of become more aware of it. That I can start feeding the horses and it looks amazing. And then I come back out of the barn 5 minutes and it's changed.
Completely.
It's so fast, and particularly in the winter as well.
Oh yeah, because
when it goes down really quickly.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that couples need to understand from the beginning that these timelines, and the DJ has a timeline too that they need to understand, and they all need to be in like a Venn diagram.
It is.
But I would say that the photographer's timeline is almost more non-negotiable than. I mean, even a ceremony, if the weather's not great, you can put the ceremony back 5 minutes.
A little bit.
You know, but the sunset's going to happen when it happens, and the first look is going to happen, and the guys going to get ready are going to happen when they happen.
Yeah.
So you need to be able to understand that.
It is. There is certain, for every timeline, there are certain non-negotiables, which is if you want pictures before you're all dressed up, pictures have to happen before you're dressed up, right? Because it's so hard, especially for the girls. Guys, I guess you could get them out of their suit and back into their,
but how many guys would be
How many guys would want that too, right? But I mean, especially for the girls, you can't like undo their hair so they look not so done up and then have to, jump back into their outfits. So there are some non-negotiables that if you want those, it's important that they're somewhere in your timeline and that people are aware of it, because a lot of times people are not even aware that that's what's supposed to be happening. And so you have a bridesmaid who already jumped in her dress because her hair was done and her makeup was done. And so, so at the end of the day, all the timelines have to be cohesive. And that's where having a good team comes in, right? If you have a good team of vendors that all communicate, we all have the timelines of each other and we are all on the same page. So the planner reaches out to the videographer and says, hey guys, this is my timeline. What do you guys have going on? What are your non-negotiables? What is something that the couple said, we absolutely have to get this, period. No matter what, we have to get this. And so, then the planner with their timeline, then they also incorporate that into their timeline as a non-negotiable. And then it goes along with the DJ. There are certain things that have to happen during the reception that the couple says this has to happen. Well, the DJ has him in his timeline has a non-negotiable. So at the end of the day, all the timelines kind of go together cohesively when you have a good team, because they communicated. It's not a couple's responsibility, I guess, to be calling the planner and telling them, hey, you gotta call the DJ. Hey, you gotta call, the photographer, videographer. It's more of here's my team. Let's all come together to make this couple's day the best day that it can be.
Which is why I bang on all the time about having a cohesive team who play nicely together, because it does make the day much, not only better, but easier for everybody.
Yes, that stresses out.
And it doesn't stress anybody out. And also, you know that 2 weeks beforehand, the planner that you've used, who plays nicely with you, has reviewed your timeline and talked about anything that's a sticking point, and said, hey, by the way, they want this and this, and they're both a bit close to each other, and can we talk about that? And discussing it, and again, communication, my favorite word of the week.
Yes.
But if people don't know what they don't know, that is where the problem comes.
Yes.
And I just think, it does come down to planners guiding them and saying, hey, you need to review your timeline with your photographer, because they want to share that with me, and this needs to be at this time, and don't forget your ceremony is at 6 o'clock, but you want sunset photos, and sunsets are happening at 6:45.
Exactly, so you have to make sure.
Need to discuss. We had a wedding that they wanted to get married in the dark, but they wanted sunset photos and no first. And you think it doesn't work.
It doesn't work that way. Exactly.
So,
you can't.
so how far in advance of a wedding do you like to do a timeline review?
So we actually have it like incorporated into our packages, and even before the couple hires us, we tell them how our workflow is going to be with them. And usually for all of our couples, like before they even hire us, we require a Zoom meeting so that they can at least put a face to who they're hiring, right? And also on that Zoom meeting, when you're actually looking at another person's face and you're kind of looking at their mannerisms, you can really tell if you can vibe with that person or if you're not going to vibe at all, right? So we never want to be surprised that we don't vibe with this couple because we never met them. Even if it's just Zoom meeting, again, we're not saying we have to meet in person, but a Zoom meeting helps to put that face to, to the name. And then when we're doing that initial consult, we tell them how we work is we will start bothering you, kind of reaching out like, hey, what's going on? If we haven't heard at least 3 months prior to the wedding. So at that point, we're going to talk about, okay, let's start building that timeline. Like, what do you guys have planned? Because by that point, couples have a little bit more plan. Mind you, most of our couples hire us at least a year out. So that's why a year out, they're not going to have a timeline. But 3 months out, we should have something, coming together. And then the non-negotiable is 1 month prior to the wedding. We have to have a timeline review. And we have to have a timeline. And again, we will build that photography, videography timeline. So it's not like the couples have to send us a timeline. It's just that they have to make the time to sit with us and provide us the information so we can build this timeline. Because obviously they have to tell us, I want a first look with mom and dad. Or no, I don't want a first look.
I just think it's time all vendors became mind readers, because it would make life so much easier, wouldn't it, if they, because everybody is so different. And weddings nowadays are, we always use the word unique, don't we? And it's a bit overused, but actually every couple wants something that's theirs.
Yes.
Whether it's a first look with mum and dad, whether it's the first look with the groom, whether it's first look with baby brother.
Yes.
They all want those things. Do some people want a first dance? Do some people want a last dance? Do they want sunset photos? Where do they want sunset photos? Do they want photos with the pony?
Yeah.
All of those things are, and there's a combination of, all of those things will happen in somebody's wedding, but there's a combination of them happening in most weddings. And I think that couples don't necessarily realize that not everybody's going to do a first look or a first touch. And, so of course you need to know whether they want to do that. Of course you need to know whether they want photographs before their hair and makeup's done.
Yes.
Of course you need to know whether you're going to take photographs of them in their pajamas, because if they want that recorded, it's got to be recorded.
Exactly.
It can't. You can't just send the drone over, take a quick picture, and be on your merry way. And do they want photographs of their detail shots or the venue with all the tables and? That's a classic one, isn't it? That you haven't. You've got this whole timeline thing, and you'll do detail shots at 11, and there's no crockery on the tables.
Exactly. And we've had that happen so many times where,
because they just don't think that
no, not at all. But that's, again, where I think also like that vendor team becomes like such an important part of your wedding, because that vendor team will educate you about things like that. We are very good about asking couples things like, okay, when is the venue going to be decorated? Is it going to be decorated the night before? Is it going to be the day off? A lot of times couples, because you guys have the 3-day experience, a lot of times couples will say, oh, we're going to get it done the night before. And my first thing will be like, and what about your flowers? Are you having real flowers? Oh, yes. They're not getting to the venue until 2. And ceremony is at 4. And so I'm like, well, it's not, it's not going to be ready, because do you want pictures of your tables without any flowers?
And the thing is, knowing that 3 months out is
then you can make a change. Exactly. So that's why it's important to have that vendor connection and to make sure that you're able to have a team that you can reach out to, that you can communicate with, that you can feel comfortable asking questions like that, or a team that's going to tell you even when you haven't even thought of all those questions. Because a lot of times couples, this is the first time they're getting married, they have no idea that flowers should have been there earlier.
But it's one of the things that I don't think that all professional vendors necessarily think outside the box and think that So, for example, a caterer might say, well, dinner's at 5:30, so we can show up at 3 and we've got plenty of time to get set up. But if they then haven't thought to share the information that they're providing all the crockery, and that's also not coming until 3, and that's then really disruptive to the venue because you can't get photos, they're bustling around while the bride and groom are trying to do first looks in the back room or whatever, and it's really disruptive. So I do think that there's a degree of responsibility on vendors to actually think of the bigger picture and realize that what they're doing is going to have an impact on somebody else. So if a florist isn't coming till 2 because they've said, oh no, 2 hours is plenty of time for me to set up before your ceremony, with no thought whatsoever to the fact that that's impacting the planner, it's who also might be busy getting ready with the bride and having tears with mom and taking care of all those things. She can't then navigate with the florist to tell her where she's got to set the flowers up. And if the florist has never been to the venue before, how does she know where she's going? Particularly our venue, if they're in the Enchanted Wood, for example. They need somebody to guide them. Or the DJ doesn't know where to plug in because the planner's busy with taking care of the florist who's shown up. So I do think it's a responsibility for all vendors to think bigger and to realize that their part of the puzzle is only one part, and they need to be responsible and respectful. And I think that they really need to be respectful of your time when, and I guess that's something that you have to say to couples. Can you talk to your caterer to find out what time, so that, because it's impacting us. And whilst you're not the only most important part either, you are the memories. You are the part that's going to be, you know, you're showing off my venue, so I want my venue to look perfect. But without you, they wouldn't remember my venue. So, and it's hard, isn't it? Because all parts of the puzzle are really important. But actually, impacting the photographer has a massive impact on the end result.
I think maybe that's why, like, when we are looking at timelines or when we're building a timeline for photography and videography, I think photographers, videographers, we see the overall picture because we are there all day and we're capturing all the moments. And so we do have to think of those things. But I guess if you are the vendor who maybe is just dropping off, I don't know, cutlery, that's the only thing you're focused on, then maybe you're not thinking of, well, if it's not there, so they can get their details, so they can get this. So yes, there's vendors that need to look at the overall picture, but I do think, like, as a photographer, videographer, that's kind of ingrained in us. You have to look at the overall picture, because whatever we do or don't communicate or ask for, then that's going to be reflected on that day. So if the couple comes to us and says they want pictures of their tables because they have fine china and they did these beautiful flowers, florals and things like that, but then they are not going to be done until 2 hours prior to that ceremony, and you have first looks, portraits, first touch, and all of those are lined up, then when are we going to get those pictures and video of those details that you took so much care to choose and, you know, do and hire and spend money on those setups? So when we're doing the timeline, we tell couples, like, we'll let them know, okay, but if they're not there at this time, and then at this time we already have all of these things going on, there is no way we can capture it. But, you know, communicate with your planner, see if there's anything that can be moved so that things can be there a little earlier, and then that way we'll be able to get those pictures and save those moments for you. Because you're right, at the end of the day, when they look back at the pictures and the video, that's how they look back at their day. And so you want all of the details, all of that money that you spend on simple little things or big major things, you want to be able to see it back in your memories. So it's important that if you did take all that care and attention for those details, that at the end of the day, your timeline is built so that you are able to capture all of those moments. Now, mind you, of course, there are some times where the timeline goes out the window and something went completely wrong and you have to flip and move things around, you know, where we had grooms who, you know, forgot their jackets or their pants or forgot, you know, like their whole suit. And now they have to go get it and it's an hour away. Well, that's when, if you have a timeline, you know what things you can flip and where you can pivot.
Right.
If you have no timeline, you're going to be running around like thinking like, what do I do now?
Well, it's a waste of money as well, isn't it? If you've booked a photographer and videographer for 12 hours and then it's not a filled 12 hours and you just say, oh, you just take whatever you want, then what a waste of money that is.
It is.
Because you're not getting the value of what you've paid for.
Yeah.
But I also think, I mean, for example, one of the things, and I don't really care about timelines from my perspective. It, you know, I like to know what time people are arriving on Friday. I like to know what time rehearsal is. But those are for practical reasons.
Yeah.
You know, am I unlocking the venue at this time? When am I putting the air conditioning on? What time is rehearsal? Because I won't feed the dogs or feed the horses while you're having rehearsal because it's disruptive.
Yeah.
Whilst I try and be really quiet, I'm still around, and you know, people are aware in the periphery.
Yeah.
I won't walk the dogs out there if I know that people are going to be out there setting up, for example. So from my perspective, the timeline is mostly practical. And the only time it ever is a logistic for me is when they want Annie, that I need to know what time, because that brat will roll in the mud right beforehand every time. So I need to make sure. But also, you know, I say to our couples, you know, I'm happy for you to have her, but she is a sentient being, and I need to know what time you're going to have her out there, because I don't want her then hanging around for 45 minutes waiting because your timeline has gone out the way, or you don't have a timeline. And, oh, we'll just get to her when we get to her. It doesn't quite work for me.
It doesn't happen with animals. It doesn't happen with kids.
No.
You have to have a
also
timeline
the
for
thing
them.
is that's quite a disrespect to my time, because I give Annie for free. It's part of the package. If you want her, you can have her with my compliments, and I'm happy to do that. But there has to be a degree of respect that, you know, I'm not then standing out there bathing her and grooming her for 2 hours, then wait. And I had that situation where somebody wanted Annie. I bathed her, I groomed her, I had her ready, I stood outside, I texted the planner and said, Annie's out here waiting for you. Oh, sorry, they've got other things going on, so they're not going to get to her. I can't tell you how mad that made me. And I try and be really gracious about things, but there are certain times, and disrespect is one of them. And I just felt that my time was not of any value to anybody. And that's where a timeline, you know, if you can't tell me that time, and even the photographer or planner should then text and say, hey, by the way, things have gone a bit pear-shaped, and, you know, we're not going to do that. Not just leave somebody standing.
Yeah, because you never know what that person had to take out of their day to be
Feed
able
my
to
other
do that.
horses and take care of my
Or
life.
maybe you had to talk to another couple, you know, call a couple who you're trying to, you know, book, or a couple that's already booked that has some questions.
Exactly.
And so you have to take that out of your calendar, that time where you're going to be there, you know, with them. And so you know, you have to be respectful and mindful of everybody has a vendor. It doesn't matter how big a part or how small a part. You just have to make sure you're respectful. And going back to the timelines, we always tell our couples, okay, when we see a timeline that's super crunched in, we then put priorities. Okay, this is that must happen, should happen, needs to happen. This is that if it can happen, I will really appreciate it. And this is that if it doesn't happen, I'm okay with it. Because sometimes you pack the day with so many things, and that's the other thing I always tell Bright. I'm like, your wedding day, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. You are going to be tired by the time this day ends.
I think the other thing is they don't realize how long things take, do
Exactly.
they? I mean, a first look with Dad, the actual look is, he turns around and looks and...
Yes.
But the setting up, the staging, getting Dad ready.
Getting people out of the way, making sure nobody's around to see the bride. And then if you have a very sentimental father of the bride and he's crying, I will tell my brides, I'm like, I'm not going to tell Dad like, well, I'm sorry, sir, you got 1 minute to cry and then we are out. I'm like, that is so disrespectful, you know, and this is his little girl getting married.
And you want to embrace those moments,
exactly.
because they're so important, aren't they?
Oh, they are, definitely.
And I mean, it's a bit like the last dance. For me, I just love it, that final dance, and the togetherness, and the we've done it, and the relief and the happiness.
Exactly.
And that moment is not let's just put the music on, have a quick wits around, and it's a time. So you know, 3 minutes. I don't even know how long songs last.
But that's only just that, right? And then you add
got to get
getting
everybody
people
out the way.
Exactly.
And get the DJ set up. Get the photographer. set up. I mean, I love it at our venue when you do the last dance and you are upstairs and take them, because then the couple feel really by themselves and it's so romantic. But for you to get all your equipment upstairs and be ready to go and then cue the D, all takes time.
Yes.
And I mean, a bit like bridesmaids. I mean, if they're not already at the same time, getting those photos.
It is, especially
sure
the
it takes
bigger the party, the more time that it's gonna take, right? Because if you say, well, I'm gonna do 5 minutes, 10 minutes of bride and bridesmaid portraits, okay, but you can't have like at 5 o'clock bride and bridesmaids pictures. At 5:10, we are like on a whole other part of the venue doing whatever else, because you also have to consider people have to get there, and even though. And we can haul, we can run. I mean, like, if I'm pressed for time, I am with my camera and equipment and I am running to the other place. But even then, like, it takes me at least a minute or so to get to wherever and then get everything set up. So you have to allow a little bit of time.
And then
between
finding
one and the
great
other.
Uncle Jim has disappeared off for a cocktail somewhere and locating them. So so how much buffer do you typically give people?
It depends on what they're doing, but we always say, at least for, like, let's say a first look, we tell at least 15 to 20 minutes of time. Now, will you take the 15 to 20 minutes? Maybe no. Maybe this is a dad that doesn't really get emotional. He doesn't really like to be in front of the camera, so he's going to cut it very short. But that allows us time to get there, to get them set up, to do the first look, get the bride hidden away again, and then move on to the next thing. So depends on what's going on and depends on how many people are involved, how much time we start allotting. And then, of course, we tell the bride. So if you have a first look, for instance, with your dad, and that's, again, 5 o'clock, and then at 5:10 you have your first look with your groom. Well, if you cry with that, now your makeup is done, and now you have to go get retouched. Can you do that in 2 minutes? No, you can't. You're in a big dress. You can't
and you're
run
still
up the
tearful,
stairs.
and now you've got to compose yourself.
And you don't want to go right from that to, like, with your makeup not at its perfect, and then now go to your groom and not be perfect. Because you want to look perfect for your groom, right?
Course.
Like, you want to look perfect for those first looks. So it's going to take a little bit of time. So it really depends on what's happening, but we'll allot time. And then that's what we will tell the bride, because the bride might say, like, oh, I think it'll be quick with that. And then I'll just jump in right to my groom. I'm like, okay, well, are you going to cry? Well, I don't typically cry. But do you think you will cry? Because then if you cry, I need to get
And the thing is, it's bonus if you don't. Well, it's not a bonus because it's quite sad if you don't cry. But you know what I mean. If you've taken less time and you've got extra time for something else, great. Because then you can fit in a nice to do picture, can't you?
Go use the restroom. Touch up your lipstick. Like, I mean, little things like that you think, even in our everyday, when I'm just wearing whatever I'm wearing. I mean, if I'm going to the restroom, even if I'm just going to touch up my nose or something, that's 5 minutes that I'm going to be there, just to touch up and stuff. If you don't allow any of that time, then you're basically running. And now you have turned this marathon into a very speedy marathon. And by the time you get down to the end of your day, everything went in such a flash that you didn't even have time to actually sit down and absorb everything.
So you probably think, oh, I'm done with this now,
Yeah.
because it's just been
My
so...
cheeks hurt. My cheeks hurt from smiling. I've never smiled this much.
Because
And
because there's just been too much built into it for too much. So what are you seeing in timelines at the moment that are the must-haves?
So the must-haves is you have to know if you're going to do any type of first looks or anything like that.
So are they very on trend, all the first looks?
They're very on trend. A lot of the pictures of the bride with bridesmaids, of course, are also very on trend, doing like that before the pictures with the matching robes, with the matching, pajamas, whatever it is. So those are very on trend. Sunset pictures are another thing that are, like, very on trend, and they have to be on the timeline because, again, we can't make the sun come back up and go back down again. And then from there, a lot of couples, and I do like this trend, that a lot of couples are now actually on their timeline, are allotting the space for themselves. So they actually have on there, at this time, the bride and the groom are going to be just themselves. They're going to go to the bridal suite to just
I tell all my couples that. Just go and build in 10 minutes into your timeline somewhere.
Yeah,
so you can
I think that's the best thing you can do.
So my personal favourite timeline photos, and I'm sure that they're always a nice to do rather than a must-have, are the groomsmen photos in the morning, the goofing off, the fun.
Yes.
I love those. And I mean, everybody, it's all about the bride. It's not. It's about everybody. And I just love it when you see the groom is relaxed and happy with his gang. And they are by far this year, my absolute favorite photos.
Yeah.
I mean, we all get sentimental over the bride and groom photos and the portraits and all of those, and the bride always looks gorgeous. I'm just in love with those.
With the groom, and the groom actually going out there and trying to do something.
Yeah. So we've just built a putting green for the grooms to go and hang out. So you can take all the flags out and still play football or do whatever else you want to goof off. But those are,
because I always tell my brides, girls, if you put a camera in front of us, we're like, yes, I got this. Let me smile. Grooms and their guys, if you put a camera in front of them, they're like, what do I do? If you give them something to do, they get caught up in the something to do, and they stop paying attention to the camera, and that's when you get the best pictures, video of them, because they're actually interacting and having fun.
And what I like is the fact that they can then do something rather than just drink and watch TV.
Yes.
Because that's kind of boring too.
Exactly.
And actually, we don't want them all just drinking all morning either, because
we want to make sure that the groom can make it down the aisle.
Exactly.
Yes.
But I'm just in love with building into the timeline the groomsmen photo. I love them so much. And it's weird because you wouldn't think that would be a highlight, but for me, seeing them, so I mean, nice. I always think, what have they got this week? What are they doing? So, whether it's a cigar bar or whether it's football or even the golf cart goofing off, or, I just think that they're all great. Somebody's going to do later on this year clay pigeon shooting.
Oh, okay.
And they've got their wedding when the farmer's field is harvested, so they're going to go into the farmer's field and clay pigeon shooting.
Oh, that'll be awesome.
So, I mean, what fun to just get some pictures.
And they actually are enjoying the day, but it's just sitting in a room, like you said.
I mean, we want them to be present, don't we? I mean, be on site, because then you're not late. But at the same time,
but you got to give them something to do versus just sitting there on site, just stuck in the room, just kind of bored out of their mind. So definitely giving them something to do.
So brides, when you're doing your timeline, think of the groom,
definitely.
Find something for them to do and build it in. And I mean, the other thing that I quite like building in is bridesmaids luncheon together, and having those, have something to actually do.
Yes.
So, don't forget to eat, but it can be part of the day. It can be part of the experience.
It can be part of the experience that you actually, and if it's built in your timeline, then you're actually going to take the time and actually do it.
Yeah.
Versus if it's not built on your timeline and you're trying to say, like, well, I'm just going to grab that snack somewhere. I mean, the amount of times that we have a bride, and you can tell people's energy goes down as the day goes on. All of this energy you're using up to smile, post, say hi to people and stuff. As the day goes on, your energy starts going down, so you need those calories in you. I carry my little book bag, which George calls it Dora the Explorer bag, because on there I always have chocolates, little snack bars, little jerky sticks and stuff, because the amount of times that I've seen a bride who says, I'm really so tired and I need some sugar, and I'm like,
here you go.
Here you go, because they forgot to eat, or they just didn't even think about it because they just went in a flash. But if they have it in their timeline, then it's in there.
And actually, it can be great photo ops too. If you do a little brunch for the girls and maybe something set up for the guys that's actually an intentional part, it can be great photos. It can be part of the experience and part of the memory. Definitely. Which is what we're all about. We're all about, it's not just a revolving door wedding. It's not just to get done and go.
No,
it's all about having an experience and enjoying
and enjoying your day and remembering, because those are the moments you're going to remember.
Yeah.
You sitting there with your girls having something to eat, the guys enjoying something, playing football, whatever it was that they did. Those are moments that you're going to remember at the end of the day. And if you don't do any of that, or if you pack your timeline so much that everything goes in a flash, at the end of the day, your wedding day went in a flash. And I hate, the one thing I would say that I always feel like, that is so unfortunate, is when a timeline is so packed that the bride and groom only spend the ceremony together, and then from there they were always pulled somewhere else. And I'm like, it's your day, you should be able to enjoy the day together. I'm not saying you have to be stuck to the hip 12 hours, right? But I'm just saying, if you didn't even have the time, the person that's that the reason why this whole day is happening, that you didn't even have time to actually sit down and just be present with each other. I think that's
why I'm all about first looks and first touches. But something else I've been seeing recently is a conscious decision for the couple to get ready together.
Yeah.
And I love that. And I think build that into your timeline. This whole tradition of not seeing the bride all came about because people were getting rid of their daughter as chattel, and didn't want the groom to change his mind halfway down the aisle because she was ugly. That's not a thing anymore. So, you know, you can see your bride beforehand and do those things and spend that time chatting and getting ready and looking forward to it. I'm all for it. I mean, I think get rid of those traditions.
And making new traditions, because like you said, there were certain traditions that happened because of the circumstances that are no longer, you know, like for newer generations, those traditions are no longer something that they want to embrace. Some of them are very beautiful, some of them are sentimental because they've been passed down through generations, you know, like that's something old, something blue, something borrowed. Like, you know, your mom did it, your grandmother did it, your great grandmother did it, and so you feel like I want to also do it because it's sentimental to me. But if it's not sentimental to you and it means nothing, then why stress over it? Do the wedding that you love. Enjoy your day. Build your own traditions, because that's what you'll remember. You won't remember, well, I had to do this tradition because so-and-so did it. You'll remember, like, I made my wedding day what I wanted it to be, and I love that we did this because it was new, it was different, but it was us. Because at the end of the day, it's about you and your groom, right? The bride and the groom.
I tell our couples all the time, you don't have to follow a tradition just because it says it is. Do you know why there's that tradition? Because if it's not important to you and it's not a tradition that actually
why
means
stress
anything,
about it?
I mean, particularly the whole getting ready with your groom. I mean, at the end of the day, you two are going to be together forever, and he or she are your best friend, and having those moments and chatting and the excitement and the anticipation. I mean, I'm all about the anticipation. I mean, I love Friday, the day setup day, when everybody is so excited about what's to come. And for me, that's one of my favorite parts of the whole wedding is the anticipation. So getting ready with your partner and having that eager anticipation. And even if you don't quite finish getting ready, but you can have breakfast together and, you know, start doing things and hanging up your dress, and even, and then parting company, so you have the reveal for the first look. You can do all of those things in your timeline. And enjoy it. So,
Definitely.
Anyway, I think we've probably chatted to death.
We did.
So, thank you very much for joining me
Thank you for having
today.
me.
So excited. And don't forget to like, follow, share, and subscribe. And we'll see you on the next one.
Have a good one.